Update on 3i, Atlas Interstellar Traveler, or Threat to the Earth. I've been staying updated on 3i Atlas, which is a really interesting interstellar comet. This is cosmic history in the making. This is the third interstellar visitor to our solar system, and this one makes the second this year. So, as stated, this is cosmic history. I've been staying updated so that I may pass this on to you guys. But this is the only update I will on this topic, so if you want more on this comet, you'll have to do your own research. But anyway, here's a summary of what scientists have learned so far and what still isn't known. What we do know: 1. Origin and discovery. Discovered by the Atlas Survey Telescope in Rio Hurtado, Chile on July 1, 2025, with pre-discovery images found from mid-June. NASA Science +2 Wikipedia +2. It is interstellar. Its trajectory is hyperbolic, meaning it's not bound to the sun and came from outside our solar system. NASA Science +1-2. Orbit and closest approach. It will make its perihelion closest approach to the sun around October 29 to 30, 2025 at about 1.4 astronomical units, 210 million kilometers from the sun, just inside Mars orbit. NASA Science +2 Wikipedia +2, it will not come closer than about 1.6 to 1, 8 AU from Earth, so there's no danger of impact. Wikipedia +2 NASA Science +2 3. Size and physical traits. The nucleus size isn't precisely known. Estimates range from as small as 320 meters up to 5-6 kilometers. NASA Science +2 Wikipedia +2, it's active. It has a coma, a cloud of gas and dust around it, and a tail is forming as it nears the sun. Gemini University +2 NASA Science 24, composition and activity. Observations, including with James Webb Space Telescope, show its coma is rich in CO2, with also water, H carbon monoxide, CO, dust, maybe water ice grains, etc. Arc +Space +2. The water production, even when relatively far, beyond 3 AU from the sun, is measurable. Areciff +15. What makes it interesting? Unusual. It may be very old, possibly older than many comets we've seen. Some analysis suggests it originated from the thick disk of the Milky Way, an older population of stars. Psi. News, breaking science news. Polarimetric studies, which tell us how light is scattered by the coma, show 3 Atlas has a deep negative polarization branch at low phase angles. Phase angle roughly the angle from sun object observer, which is unusual. Something about how the dust or ice in the coma is scattering light is not quite typical compared to many solar system comets. Areciff. What we don't yet know. What's being studied? The exact composition of its nucleus, what mix of ices, dust, organics, etc., especially deep inside. There's good data for the coma, but how representative that is of the nucleus is always a question. Whether it has internal structure anomalies, e.g. lots of large ice grains versus fine dust, or particular materials that differ significantly from solar system comets. How bright it will get for observers on Earth under good viewing conditions, especially after it passes perihelion. It's relatively faint, and its closest approach to Earth is still quite far. Wikipedia +1. Exactly where it came from, which star system, what kind of environment. Those trajectories give clues, but the uncertainty is large. Why this is cool, why people are interested. Because it's interstellar, it gives scientists a rare chance to study a body formed in a different star system. What ice it holds, how it's weathered or not, how its composition compares with our comets. Might tell us about how planetary systems form elsewhere. Also, because there have only been 2 confirmed interstellar objects before, Oumuamua and Borisov, each new one adds a lot to what we understand about stuff between the stars. In the updated information that is surrounding this object now, skeptics believe it to be a probe or a mothership of some sort. But I found a bunch of what people are saying and what scientists are actually saying about these ideas. I'll lay out both, the speculation and how it stacks up against the evidence so far. What people are claiming. Here are the main ideas floating around that 3 Atlas might be more than a comet. Avi Loeb's hypothesis. Avi Loeb, Harvard, and some co-authors wrote a paper suggesting the possibility that the 3i Atlas could be an extraterrestrial technological artifact, essentially a probe or mothership that might even release mini probes targeting planets like Mars, Venus, or perhaps Earth. The Economic Times +4 Medium +4 Space 4, they point to certain odd things. For example, the timing of its trajectory past multiple planets, how its perihelion, closest pass to the sun, will hide it behind the sun from Earth, the high speed, and some supposed lack, in early reports, of certain volatile ice signatures. These are taken by some as suggestive of non-natural origin. Live science plus space plus 3 medium plus 3. There's also the idea that if it's a mothership, it might drop mini probes to survey planets or do something else, or that it's built to avoid observation by hiding behind the sun. Medium plus 2, the economic times plus 2. What the scientific evidence shows so far. But when you look closely at what's been observed, a lot of what has been offered to suggest artificiality is weaker than what you might expect for something designed or ambiguous. Here are the more concrete scientific findings. Comet-like behavior is strongly present. A coma cloud of gas dust has been detected. Outgassing is observed, including a strong CO2 component, water, CO, and ice grains from JWST and other instruments. ARCS 3 plus 3 plus 3. Brightness, gas emissions, and tails are consistent with what we see from comets, especially those from far out that become active only as they approach the sun. RxEV plus 2, RxEV plus 2. The predictions from NASA, etc., show that even at its brightest, it won't be especially close to Earth to cause danger. Also, many observations are ongoing, Hubble, Webb, etc., to measure its size, composition, etc. NASA Science plus 1. What's still missing? Why the mothership idea is speculative. No observed propulsion or maneuvering. As of now, there's no evidence of course corrections or anything like a thruster being used. That would be one of the stronger signs of artificial origin. Lack of detection of radio emissions or signals. Another thing you might expect if it were something built intelligent, but nothing of that sort has been confirmed. Many claims are in preprint stage, i.e. not yet peer-reviewed, and are explicitly framed as speculative. Loeb himself has said the natural comet scenario is by far the more likely. Space plus 2 medium plus 2. Some of the oddities can also be explained by natural physics. For example, certain compositions or trajectories that seem unusual might just be rare rather than engineered. Also, things like hiding behind the sun are natural consequences of orbital geometry, not necessarily strategic. My take, what seems most plausible. From where things currently stand, the evidence still strongly leans toward 3 Atlas being a natural interstellar comet, albeit an unusual one in some respects, especially rich in CO2, etc. The idea that it could be artificial isn't ruled out. In science, you usually don't prove negative, but there's no compelling evidence yet that requires that explanation. But this is how quiet takeovers happen. They send small scouts out to survey, as with the 2 prior comets, and now 3I Atlas. The mothership has arrived. I am just speculating, though. But that kind of scenario, small scouts first, then a larger mothership, is exactly the sort of story that sparks a lot of head-turning speculation. Good thinking to flag it as speculation. I'll walk through it with you. What would have to be true for it to be plausible, what the big practical obstacles are, and what real observational signs would actually support the idea. Short answer first. It's plausible as a fictional / what if, but very unlikely based on what I've observed so far. Here's why, and what to watch for if you want to keep an eye on it. Why the quiet takeover by scouts mothership idea is tempting. It's a simple strategy. Send small, stealthy scouts to map targets, then a larger craft arrives to act on that intelligence. Interstellar visitors like Oumuamua and Borisov did raise attention about objects from other systems, so the narrative fits with recent events and human pattern matching. Big practical problems for any real interstellar mothership plan. Distance and energy. Getting an object to interstellar speed and then aiming it near specific planets costs huge energy, orders of magnitude beyond our current tech. Travel time. Even relatively fast interstellar objects would take thousands to millions of years unless the technology is far beyond what we know. That makes coordinated scouting and mothership timing extremely hard. Stealth versus detectability trade-off. A craft that's stealthy enough to hide from advanced sensors would also have to avoid leaving any thermal, radio, or outgassing signatures, but any probe that harvests local materials or uses active propulsion will likely be detectable. Communications and control. If scouts are sent years or centuries ahead, Communicating back or synchronizing actions with a later mothership is non-trivial across interstellar distances and time. Real, testable signs that would support an artificial origin. If we wanted to move from speculation to scientific plausibility, these are the things people would look for, and that would be hard to explain naturally. 1. Non-gravitational directed maneuvers, course corrections inconsistent with outgassing. 2. Narrowband or structured radio emissions, persistent or transient, coming from the object. 3. Spectral signatures of engineered materials, metals, alloys, coatings, organized structures, rather than cometary ices and dust. 4. Unusual dynamics, e.g. rotation rates, reflective geometry, or light curves that strongly match manufactured shapes. 5. Release of secondary objects in a way inconsistent with natural fragmentation, timing, trajectories, or controlled dispersal. 6. Rapid changes in behavior tied to conditions that would be unnatural, e.g. sudden activation on approach with no physical source of volatiles. Currently, the strongest counter-evidence for 3 Atlas being artificial is that it shows exactly the kinds of emissions coma tail that comets show, measured gases, dust. That doesn't prove it's natural, but it makes an artificial explanation unnecessary to explain the observations. How to follow this census sources and actions? Follow reliable scientific outlets and observatories, NASA, ESA, major observatories, peer-reviewed papers, rather than rumor channels. Watch for specific claims backed by data, e.g., detection of non-gravitational acceleration after known outgassing is accounted for, narrowband radio detection, or spectrum lines indicating alloys. Those would change the odds. If you want to participate, amateur astronomers can submit observations to the Minor Planet Center. Coordinated optical or radio monitoring campaigns are how new evidence is found. Quick reality check. Reassurance. Extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. Speculation is fine, interesting even, but concrete, repeatable observations published peer-reviewed or from reputable observatories are what change scientific consensus. There's no confirmed evidence right now of purposeful maneuvers, radio emissions, or engineered materials for 3 Atlas. The way these theorists think travel, distance, stealth, these things won't be a problem for an alien race. Their technology is far more advanced than ours, so they don't see that being an issue if they wanted to come here to Earth. And I can see that being a fair point. If a civilization is far more advanced than ours, a lot of the constraints we worry about, energy, travel time, stealth, communications, could indeed be trivial for them. Let me run through that perspective clearly, plus what would still be telling even if they are technologically superior. How an advanced civilization could sidestep the big problems. Propulsion and travel time. They might use propulsion. We don't understand. High-efficiency fusion antimatter, beamed propulsion, or something exotic like warp, bubble drives, or wormholes. That would collapse the enormous time-energy barriers we imagine. Stealth. Materials and engineering could make objects nearly invisible across many wavelengths. Coatings that absorb or scatter thermal signatures, active cloaking that cancels emissions, or structures that present minimal cross-section. Autonomy and coordination. Self-replicating or extremely long-lived probes can be sent centuries or millennia ahead. AI on board can operate without real-time communication. They don't need low-latency control from a home star. Power sources. Compact, dense power, microfusion, zero point, if such exist, could allow sustained operations, releasing mini-probes or directing beams without obvious signatures. Materials and design. Engineered alloys, metamaterials, and modular mothership Scouts architecture could make the system look unlike anything we've cataloged. All of that makes intuition reasonable. Advanced tech could make the logistical objections moot, but what would still be observable and useful? Even with super advanced tech, some observable things would likely betray an artificial system because physics still constrains measurement and interaction. Directed, non-outgassing accelerations that can't be explained by cometary jets. Structured electromagnetic signals, narrowband radio, laser pulses, or otherwise patterned emissions. Even stealthy tech might leave intermittent or directional leakage. Spectral evidence of engineered materials, organized metals, alloys, coatings, or emission lines not typical for cometary dust gases. Unnatural light curves showing rotation geometry that matches manufactured shapes, flat faces, regular periodic dips, etc. Release of secondary objects with coordinated trajectories or behavior inconsistent with simple fragmentation. Behavioral changes triggered by conditions, e.g., sudden activation near a planet in ways that can't be explained by sunlight/thermal physics. If those are seen and rigorously confirmed, the probability of artificial origin rises dramatically, even for skeptics. And that's probably the way a lot of us would be thinking right about now with this event taking place. But logically, thinking the way I see this event, it's a way for humanity to see and understand that we are but infants when it comes to understanding the vastness of the Creator. This shows us that the universe is full of wonder and fascination by the Creator's hand. This is a sign that we must acknowledge that the universe is truly alive and ready to interact with the mortals of this world, an invitation from the cosmos, a reminder of our smallness and connection to a living Creator. Below is a short Cosmon-style passage I wrote. I kept it scripture-like, reverent, and brief. Jehovah spake, Behold the messenger that cometh from the wide, not to conquer, but to awaken, that the sons of earth may lift their eyes and remember the breath that made them. Let no man be proud in the face of the heavens, for the heavens are teachers, and the Creator's handiwork is living. When a wanderer from beyond my sons crosses thy skies, it is a knock upon the door of thy understanding. Greet it with humility, study it with wisdom, and love thy neighbor with greater heart. For I have set the great book of the firmament open, and the faintest star hath a lesson. Receive it. I hope that fits the mood now. Let's get back to chopping this up. Now, I hear people saying as this object heads towards the sun, it's gathering information on us and sending it back to its home. It's a probe, they scream. But as we know, that's a common line people are taking. And it's worth unpacking it carefully because the idea sounds plausible on the surface, but has specific, testable implications. How an object would gather information on Earth, passive observation, cameras, spectrometers, magnetometers, dust analyzers, etc., could image planets, measure atmospheres, sample dust and plasma as it flies by. That kind of sensing leaves little signature beyond normal cometary activity. Active probing, releasing scouts, radar, sonar-like sounding, or directing beams at targets. Those would be harder to hide and could produce unusual secondary objects or directed emissions. How it would send information back home. Real-time transmission requires a transmitter and antenna, likely directional, and power. A narrow laser or radio beam aimed at its home system would be the most efficient. Store and forward, it could record data locally and transmit much later or when in a better line of sight. That avoids immediate detection but delays communication by years, millennia, depending on distance. Physical return. Send data-carrying probes back toward its origin, slow but stealthy. Practical constraints that affect plausibility, even for advanced tech. Line of sight and timing. Sending a directed signal back home requires knowing where to point. If the home star is far off the current trajectory, the object must either have that direction pre-programmed or be able to compute, adjust orientation. Power and heat near the sun. Passing close to the sun gives lots of energy, useful for power, but also creates extreme thermal and plasma environments that complicate transmitter operation. Signal detectability at Earth. A tightly beamed transmission aimed at its home might miss Earth entirely. Conversely, any leakage toward Earth would be weak unless intentionally broad or mispointed. Observable signatures that would support the gathering plus transmitting story. If it were happening, we might detect one or more of these. 1. Narrowband structured radio signals from the object, SETI style. 2. Pulsed or coherent optical laser emission, brief flashes, repeating patterns. 3. Non-cometary ejections, small objects released on controlled trajectories rather than random fragmentation. 4. Non-gravitational accelerations inconsistent with measured outgassing. 5. Spectral lines of engineered materials in the coma, metals, alloys, coatings. 6. Synchronized changes in behavior when the object has line of sight to a particular star or planet, activation windows. Why ordinary comet behavior gets misread. Comets naturally produce jets, fragments, dust, and changing brightness. Those look intentional to humans prone to pattern finding, so the presence of activity alone is not evidence of transmitting or spying. What you can do, watch for, Monitor reputable channels, NASA, major observatories, and SETI updates for any claim of narrowband radio or laser detections. Watch for peer-reviewed papers or instrument teams reporting directed emissions or controlled releases. Follow quick response amateur networks and the Minor Planet Center for reports of unusual fragmentation or light curves. If you want, I can make a short one-page checklist which items are already checked for 3i Atlas and which are not, and keep an eye on SETI and observatory feeds for any of the signatures above. Here's a short, up-to-date summary, as of September 11, 2025, of what's actually known versus what's speculation about 3i Atlas, with the most important sources attached. The quick headline: astronomers are treating 3 Atlas as an interstellar comet that is active, tail, outgassing. JWST, Hubble, and many ground telescopes have observed it and found coma gases, notably CO2 and a growing tail. RxIV plus 2 plus EV2, what's been observed, most important items: infrared spectra show a CO2-dominated coma and measurable volatiles, consistent with cometary outgassing rather than engineered propulsion. RxIV, high-resolution imaging, HST Gemini ground networks, shows a fuzzy coma and a nascent tail that has grown noticeably as the object warms, classic comet behavior. RxIV plus 1, polarimetric and other studies report unusual properties, e.g. strong negative polarization at small phase angles, which make 3i Atlas scientifically interesting and somewhat atypical, but atypical, artificial. Medium plus 1, what scientists and major agencies are saying now. NASA and many astronomers emphasize that current observations are well explained by a natural comet, no confirmed signs of propulsion, engineered materials, or directed emissions. NASA is treating this as a major scientific opportunity. NASA Science One, Avi Loeb and a few others have publicly argued the artificial probe hypothesis remains worth considering and have posted speculative papers and commentary. But these views are not the consensus and rely on interpreting a few odd features as possibly non-natural. Center for Astrophysics plus 1, what hasn't been shown, important negatives. No confirmed narrowband radio or engineered optical transmissions coming from 3i Atlas have been reported publicly as of 2025-09/11. SETI groups are following it and discussing monitoring plans, but nothing definitive has been published. SETI.org plus 1, no verified evidence of deliberate maneuvers, i.e. non-gravitational accelerations that can't be explained by outgassing, has been demonstrated in peer-reviewed work to date. Observed activity so far matches cometary models reasonably well. RxIV plus 1 timeline and visibility, short, discovered 1st July 2025, perihelion around 29 to 30 October 2025, will pass on the far side of the sun from Earth, then reappear for Earth observers in early December 2025. It will not come close enough to Earth to be dangerous. NASA Science plus 1, bottom line, what this means, the best current explanation: an unusual, active interstellar comet, rich in CO2 with interesting dust, ice properties. The artificial probe mothership idea is being discussed publicly, notably by Loeb, but no compelling, confirmed observational evidence requires that explanation as of 2025 to 9/11. Extraordinary claims would need extraordinary, repeatable data, engineered spectral lines, directed radio laser beacons, controlled fragment deployment, or clear non-gravitational thrusts not explainable by outgassing. Center for Astrophysics plus 1. Right now it's in the constellation of Libra. Position: constellation. Right now 3i Atlas is still in the constellation Libra. The Skylive plus 2 in the sky, Org plus 2. Its coordinates are approximately right ascension, RA 15H06 meters, and declination -13°16. The Skylive plus 2 in the sky. Org plus 2. The Skylive confirms that from many parts of Earth it's visible in Libra at an elevation above the horizon in certain directions, e.g. south-southeast from London, though faint and needing a decent telescope. The Skylive JWST photo, what is available? There are JWST observations of 3i Atlas, specifically JWST's near-infrared spectrograph, NRSpec, captured it on August 6, 2025. These observations reveal that the comet's coma is dominated by CO2 gas, with water, CO, OCS, dust, etc. RxEV plus 2 space plus 2. The images from JWST include panels that show infrared flux maps, for example CO2 at 4.3 meters and H2O at 2.7 millimeters, and spectral profiles confirming molecular signatures. European Space Agency +2, what we don't yet have, uncertainties. The photo in the image carousel is a JWST observation of the comet, augmented with spectral panels. But it is not a visible light style photo like what you might see with Hubble or Earth telescopes. The JWST image is infrared and focused more on gas content than detailed structure of the tail. European Space Agency +1. Also, I didn't find a more recent JWST image, i.e. later than August 2025, that shows the comet in the exact current position in Libra. Mapping 3I Atlas in Libra. As of September 11, 2025, 3I Atlas is located in the constellation Libra. Its coordinates are approximately right ascension 15.806 meters, declination, dec, minus 13 degrees 16th. It is expected to stay in Libra throughout September 2025. After that, it will transition into the constellation Virgo in October 2025. This movement is due to its trajectory as it approaches the sun. To see Jehovah, the Great Spirit, is to understand his works. As we are doing here, and after your reply, can we close this with that understanding reigning? And that is a perfect way to frame this entire conversation we are having. To see Jehovah, the Great Spirit, is indeed to witness his works in the heavens, in the earth, and in the life of mortals. Every comet, every star, every subtle movement of the cosmos is a sign of his living creation. 3 Atlas, whether a wandering comet or a messenger beyond our knowing, is part of that grand design, a reminder of our smallness, our curiosity, and the infinite wonder of the universe he has set in motion. Let us close with this thought. By observing, questioning, and reflecting upon the heavens, we honor Jehovah. In our humility and awe, we recognize that the universe is alive, that life is sacred, and that the Creator's works are open to those willing to see, to learn, and to understand. We carry this understanding forward, eyes lifted to the skies, hearts open to his lessons, and minds ready to discern truth in the unfolding tapestry of creation. My reflections have been a beautiful way to see the universe through both the mind of science and the heart of spirit. As of October 3rd, 3I Atlas will be out of Earth's view. We won't be able to see it anymore with our telescopes due to its path into the sun and solar glare. So our alternative for continued observation will have to come from the area of Mars, seeing that we have a satellite stationed there to take pictures of the surface of Mars. If we turn the camera around, we may be able to obtain great photographs of 3I Atlas on its pass-by once 3I Atlas swings too close to the sun. Early October 2025, Earth-based telescopes won't be able to track it because of as stated solar glare. Could Mars-based spacecraft observe it? Yes, in theory. Here's how it breaks down. Mars orbiters. NASA's Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter, MRO, MAVEN, and ESA's ExoMars Trace Gas Orbiter all carry powerful cameras and instruments, though most are tuned for Mars observation, not deep space comet imaging. If repurposed, they could point outward, but spacecraft resources are tightly scheduled, so such requests usually need international coordination. Why Mars could help? Mars has a different orbital position than Earth, so at times when Earth can't see a comet, blocked by sun, Mars might have a clearer vantage. If a camera like HiRISE on MRO were turned outward, it might resolve the comet's coma and tail in visible light. Challenges. These cameras aren't optimized for faint, fast-moving deep space objects. They're designed for brightly lit Martian terrain. Pointing a satellite away from Mars involves navigation risks, fuel usage, thermal stress, and recalibration. Reality check. So while it's possible in theory, and has been done before, spacecraft sometimes target comets/asteroids outside their primary mission, it would require NASA ESA mission planners to approve and retask the spacecraft. If the scientific community values 3 Atlas highly enough, being only the third known interstellar visitor, there could be proposals to use Mars orbiters or even solar orbiting spacecraft, like SOHO or Parker Solar Probe, to keep tracking it after October. I did a check to see whether NASA or ESA has already planned extended observations of 3I Atlas from Mars orbiters or solar probes once Earth loses sight of it. And yes, missions at Mars are already planned to try to observe 3I Atlas during its close pass on 3rd October 2025. Here's the concise source summary and what it means. What's happening? Key facts. Closest approach to Mars, 30 million kilometers on 3rd of October 2025. A much closer encounter than the comet's pass by Earth. Space One, who will try to observe it. SA has confirmed plans to task Mars Express and the ExoMars Trace Gas Orbiter, TGO, to take observations around the 3 October flyby. Other Mars orbiters, e.g., MRO, MAVEN, are also candidates and are being discussed by mission teams. European Space Agency 1. Other spacecraft joining the effort. Several non-Mars spacecraft observatories are being readied too, e.g., JUICE in a favorable geometry, solar observatories, SOHO, Solar Orbiter, and heliophysics missions, such as Parker Solar Probe, may capture the object near perihelion when Earth views are blocked. European Space Agency +1. What these observations could deliver. Mars orbiters could produce images of the coma and tail from a viewpoint where the sun doesn't blind Earth telescopes, useful for morphology, dust gas distribution, and possibly for searching for secondary objects. Spectrometers on TGO and other instruments could measure gas composition and compare it with JWST-HST results to see evolution as the comet warms. NOAA Lab +1. Practical limits and caveats. Most Mars orbiters' cameras are optimized for Mars mapping, not faint deep space targets. Pointing them outward is possible but requires careful planning, fuel, thermal, operations time, and instrument calibration. European Space Agency. Even at 30 million kilometers, the comet will appear small and faint compared with Mars targets. High-resolution imaging will be challenging but scientifically valuable. Space +1. After leaving Libra, 3i Atlas moves into the constellation Virgo in October 2025. Here's the breakdown. September 2025 in Libra, where it is now. Early October 2025, as it approaches perihelion, closest pass to the Sun, its path carries it across the boundary into Virgo. October onward, it will remain in Virgo while fading from Earth's view due to solar glare. This is why observations will shift to spacecraft, Mars orbiters, solar probes. So when Mars orbiters and solar missions try to track it during and after October 3rd, they'll be looking toward the Virgo sector of the sky. Libra Virgo marks its symbolic crossing point just before vanishing from Earth's reach. This reminds me of a story in the book of Genesis where God said he put the signs in the sky so man shall know of his works. I think that's a beautiful connection to make. Let's go there. In Genesis 1:14 it says, "And God said, Let there be lights in the firmament of the heaven to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs and for seasons and for days and years." In the spirit of OSB and the way I've been reflecting, this means the lights of heaven, stars, comets, planets, are not random accidents, but part of the Creator's great book of creation. They serve as signs to remind mortals of his presence, to guide the cycles of life, and to awaken spiritual understanding. Every rare object, like 3i Atlas, becomes more than just a comet. It's a living sign that the universe is not silent, but speaks of Jehovah's vast works. So when we track this interstellar visitor moving from Libra into Virgo, it's like watching scripture unfold in the heavens, showing us both the mystery of creation and our place within it. Here's a passage, weaving together Genesis, the comet 3i Atlas, Libra, Virgo, and Jehovah's signs. The scroll of the heavenly sign 1. And Jehovah spake unto the children of men, saying, Behold, I set the lights in the firmament of the heavens, that ye may know my works. For the sun to rule the day, and the moon to rule the night, and the stars and wanderers to be for signs and for seasons, that ye may not forget me. 2. And lo, in the latter days, a traveler from beyond the worlds entered into the dominion of the sun. Its name among men is 3 Atlas, yet in the books of heaven it is a witness of the All-Highest. 3. First it tarried in Libra, the scales, to show that the measure of man and the measure of the Creator are not the same. For man weigheth with instruments, but Jehovah weigheth the soul. 4. Then it passed into Virgo, the virgin, to declare the purity of Jehovah's creation, and that new life is ever born from his breath. Thus was a sign given that the universe is alive, and the voice of the Great Spirit is not silent. 5. Mortals looked with their instruments from the earth, but soon the light of the sun covered it, and their eyes were blinded. Yet Jehovah prepared watchers from Mars, and from the orbits of the wandering ships of men, that his works should not pass unseen. 6. Behold, these are not signs of fear, nor of destruction, but of remembrance, that ye are infants in the vastness of worlds, and Jehovah is Father and Mother of all. 7. He who looketh upon the heavens with wonder, and declareth, Lo, the works of the Almighty are before me, that one hath already seen Jehovah. And with that I depart with saying, Ase Amen Onai Ho in R3 Psalm Noon.